Welcome to Medill Sports Talk, where we break down the news this week for the sports you love. Welcome to the program. Medill Sports Talk is fully loaded and ready to go from our gorgeous downtown Chicago studios. Here we are. It's the end of February, and we are quickly approaching college basketball fans' favorite time of year, March Madness. Joining me today to break down the latest on the college hardwood are Medill Sports Talk college hoops experts, Hogan Davis and Kwiecinski. And guys, let's get right into it. This is sort of the calm before the storm. We'll know a lot more about a lot of teams following their respective conference tournaments. But given that we're right here in Big Ten country, let's talk Big Ten tourney. Who do you guys like to win this year?
I've got to go with Michigan State. I think that the Spartans are the deepest team, the best team. They've got some of the best players. Miles Bridges, I think, is the best player in the conference, and they are rounding into form. They've won 11 straight, and they're ready to go win a tournament.
And when you come to talk about the competition Michigan State has, you got to look at Ohio State. Ohio State is a team that's beat Michigan State. They beat them 80-64. Granted, it was on Ohio State's floor, but we're going to talk about the tournament that's being neutral. Base Diop is probably the front runner for the Big Ten Player of the Year, I believe. He's carrying this Buckeyes team, and come tournament time, all bets are off, and we might see Ohio State go on a really big run. We've seen them do it this year before, coming into Big Ten play. And who else is there? I mean, you could talk about Purdue, but they lost to Illinois.
Yeah, Michigan State's got that star power with Miles Bridges, but don't count out the Buckeyes, especially for what they accomplished towards more of the beginning of the season. But guys, last year, the University of Michigan came in as a number 8 seed and took the Big Ten by storm and won the conference tournament. Do either of you see any sleepers in the Big Ten that could maybe pull some upsets and win the tourney this year?
I think you've got to stick with Michigan again. They're not going to be the 8th seed. They're going to be sitting around the 4 or 5 line. But they're just playing really good basketball right now. They've got the outside shooting and the toughness. Did you guys see Jordan Poole's dunk and stare into the camera against Penn State the other day? They've just got the swagger you need to play well in March.
Yeah, it does seem like they're really feeling themselves right now, and this time of year it could be who gets hot at the right time. But Chris, I ask you, any other sleepers?
You said it perfectly. Whoever gets hot is going to take the tournament. And who's hot right now? The Big Red, Nebraska. They've won 7 of the last 8 games. They're riding a really, really good hot streak right now. Probably the hottest in the Big Ten. They're 21-9. They're Big Ten surprise of the season. I don't see why there's a reason why they aren't the top sleeper as opposed to just a sleeper.
Yeah, it has been a memorable year in Lincoln so far, and a Big Ten tourney run would only add to that. But it's been a memorable season for a lot of teams. There have been a number of emerging stars throughout the scene in college basketball this season. The Player of the Year conversation is really wide open. So Hogan, I'll start with you. Any players that you have your eye on that could emerge as the most outstanding player in college basketball?
Well, a couple weeks ago, before a little bit of a drop-off, Trae Young was the consensus pick for Player of the Year. And I think he's still the guy. He's still leading the nation in scoring and assists as a freshman coming in. And yeah, he's turned the ball over a little too much lately, but he established too big a lead in this race, and no one's closed the gap. Marvin Bagley Jr. Looked like another freshman that could have come in and taken that over, but he's missed 4 games with injury, and we don't know what his status is going to be going forward. So I've got to stick with Trae Young.
Tough to argue with that, but Chris, I will ask you, any other players that you're considering for Player of the Year?
It's hard to argue with Trae Young's stats. I mean, it's tough to argue with the top scorer, one of the top scorers of the league, one of the top assisters of the league. But if you look at who's won the Naismith Trophy the last few years, the last 2 years actually, a senior's won the trophy. And I don't want to say that's indicative of what's going to happen this year, but Devontae Graham, player for Kansas, he's filling in the shoes for Frank Mason III, and he's doing it very well, especially at the back end of the season. He's come up with a lot of clutch free throws. He's come up with a lot of clutch steals. And if Kansas wins a really, really competitive Big 12, there's really that much argument against him, because he's going to have to run through Trae Young to beat that, or to win the Big 12.
Yeah, I even think of a guy like Miles Bridges, you know, for potentially what he can do in this Big Ten tournament. You know, maybe he makes that late push. He's so talented and so fun to watch, as a lot of those players for Michigan State are. But guys, there's going to be a lot of games that go into overtime in the coming tournaments. So just like the action on the hardwood, we're going into overtime here on Medill Sports Talk.
Let's go.
A little extra time for you. So let's have some fun with these. There have been some good haircuts in college basketball so far this season, but some not so good ones. And Chris, we'll start with you. Give me your best and worst haircuts in college basketball.
You know, I gotta say, for the best and worst, for me, it's actually a two-way street. It's got to be Trae Young. I mean, the guy has simultaneously the best and worst haircut. I mean, you look at him; it's very iconic what he's got. You know, the way his hair flows. He's got, you know, the highlights, but at the same time, how do you look at that and go, well, that's a superstar haircut? I don't know if it is.
It's kind of becoming his thing, you know? I mean, it's kind of like when Anthony Davis had the unibrow. I mean, it was the same kind of thing, right? Same line of thinking, best and worst there.
But Trae Young wasn't able to trademark the unibrow.
I don't know. Having the worst hair in college basketball, is that what you want your trademark to be? Man, Trae Young's hair. Whenever you type into Twitter Trae Young, the first thing that pops up is Trae Young hair, which is not a good sign. It's just hundreds of tweets of people going in on his hair. Trae, please, just shave it off, go bald, just get rid of it, start over. Try the Bosley or whatever hair regrowth, whatever Brian Urlacher did, try that. Just something's got to change because that game is too good to go with that hair. Now, on my players, I would go with Michael Porter Jr.'s hair as the best hair in college basketball. Mostly because, as a guy who grew up around Columbia, Missouri, there's nothing more exciting in college basketball right now than one of the top recruits coming back, being cleared medically to play, and he could be joining a tournament team in Missouri down the stretch.
That is exciting. And we forgot one that's right here in our own backyard. Barrett Benson. I know he comes off the bench for our Northwestern Wildcats, but you got to fear the fro, right?
The most ferocious fro that I've seen was Josh Childress at Stanford way back in the last decade.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that one, to be honest. He had it. He made it into his own thing. He was his own player, and he took it to the NBA, before he took it overseas. But it was iconic.
Yeah, it was iconic, branding, if you will, and maybe that's what Trae Young is going for. But guys, we're going to move on to uniforms now. Best and worst uniforms in college basketball. Chris, you started last time, so Hogan, we'll start with you.
The best uniform has got to be Northwestern, the Big Cats. For senior night this year, they had their seniors design their uniforms. They had the Chicago City skyline on the shoulders. They had the Chicago flag, cats across the chest. It was a great jersey, and it was designed by the players. I don't think you can beat it.
I really disagree with that. I really think it was really tacky. It really didn't look that good. And for the senior night, you got to go the tried and true. You got to go with the regular Northwestern number, call it a day. But I'll give you this. That is not the worst uniform that's out there right now. The worst is North Carolina. You got to think about who designs their uniforms. Jumpman, the Jordan brand. And what do they have in their uniforms? On the side, Argyle. Who puts that on a uniform? But, I could go on for hours on that. But you know what? I'm going to switch gears and talk about my favorite uniform, and it's Oregon. Now, they have the traditional green, Oregon, got the number. It just looks great. I know it's one of 10,000 uniforms they wear per season, but it's traditional, it's classic, and you gotta love it.
I was gonna say, which highlighter yellow uniform are we talking about here? I don't think Oregon, has a standard uniform that you can even point to the best or the worst.
They got the traditional green. You see it about every few games or so, and you like to trade it up, and yeah, they like to put a different color highlight on there, but you can't knock the original.
As long as we don't have to sit through any games with Baylor with those brutally bright uniforms where your eyes feel like they're bleeding, I'm okay with whatever teams decide to wear.
Fair enough.
But guys, the time of planting yourself in front of the couch for hours and hours and watching nonstop college basketball is quickly approaching. In the meantime, prepare yourself for the madness by watching all of the upcoming conference tournaments and, of course, watching every episode of Medill Sports Talk, which you can find on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Medill Sports Talk. And for everyone in the control room, behind the cameras, and my analysts, Hogan Davis and Chris Kwiecinski, I'm Jake Riepma, thanking you for tuning in to Medill Sports Talk, and we'll see you next time.